Copper has skyrocketed over the last 12 months, gaining more than 100% since the COVID crash. But many analysts still agree that there is a lot of upside to it. Today, I'm talking about why I'm bullish on copper, and I will look at my top 4 copper stocks that you can buy to profit from both inflation and the increasing price of copper. So, if you want to learn more, like this video and keep watching. Copper is trading at a very high price right now. But if we take a look at the charts, we can see that it is starting to slow down a little bit and now trades around $4.4 and $4.5 per pound, just above its 50-day moving average. To me, this looks like the perfect time to buy copper stocks. Why? Well, there are 2 strong bullish arguments about copper. First of all, there are the supply shortage concerns. Some of the world's biggest mines are in Peru and Chile, which have had some political issues lately, with possible increased taxation on mining, which could affect the production numbers. China has also started to build up massive copper stockpiles, which is concerning. Analysts also think that there is a roughly 8 million ton gap between supply and demand over the next 10 years, which is the biggest gap that we have ever seen in the copper markets. And it could lead to copper prices rising between 60 and 120% over the next 5 years. The US CPI index is also picking this up, as we saw a 6.5% increase in broad commodity prices, which is the biggest that we have seen in 20 years and perhaps longer. There are certainly some massive copper projects being developed right now, but the quality and size are not comparable to what we were seeing 10 years ago, and the project approval rate has generally been slow. This leads me to my second bullish argument. Not only do we have a supply shortage, but there is also increased demand. Banks are now calling copper the new oil because of its importance in replacing oil with renewable energy. Copper is used in batteries, it is used in renewable energy systems, wires, cables, ribbons, inverters, pretty much anything electrical has some copper in it, because the metal is an excellent thermal and electric conductor. Silver has better qualities, but it is also way more expensive. Literally 100 times more expensive. So, copper usage in renewable systems is roughly 5 times more than in traditional energy systems, and given the quick and substantial shift towards renewable electricity all over the world, we can expect the demand for it to jump even more. Add to that the rise in electric vehicles and the fact that they tend to use 4 to 5 times more copper than normal vehicles, and we start to see why prices can jump even higher, especially when combined with the possible supply shortage. By the way, the copper price increase is also one of the drivers of the rising electricity prices, which were up 4.2% in May, the highest increase in 7 years. So, if you're invested in renewables, electric vehicles, electric utilities, buying copper miners can be an excellent hedge. Before I tell you my top copper stock picks, I want to address the main risk associated with copper miners, and that is the price of copper plateauing, or even falling a bit. The Chinese government has also recently spoken about controlling the jump in copper prices, so we could see it remaining at its current level or even dropping a little bit. Demand could also decrease, which will lower the price. However, given the shortage of the metal and the growth in renewables and electric vehicles, this scenario seems highly unlikely to me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Alright, so first on my list of best copper miners are Southern Copper and Freeport McMoran, followed by Rio Tinto and BHP. In my opinion, these 4 companies are the perfect way to bet on the rising copper prices. Southern Copper is probably my favorite because they own the largest copper reserves in the world. Freeport McMoran is the main owner and operator behind 3 of the world's biggest copper mines in terms of production, with one of them being the largest copper mine by output in North America, Morenci in Arizona. On the other hand, BHP is the majority owner and operator of the world's largest copper mine by output, the Escondida mine in Chile. BHP owns 57% of it and Rio Tinto owns 30%. BHP also owns a third of the 8 biggest copper mine by output, Antamina. All of these companies also produce zinc, silver, molybdenum as byproducts, so price increases in all of these will also benefit them. Southern Copper is entirely focused on copper. Freeport McMoran also has some gold mining operations, whereas Rio Tinto mines iron, bauxite, aluminium, diamonds and titanium, and BHP mines iron, nickel, potash, uranium, and also produces some natural gas, coal and oil. So far, so good. But what is their valuation? Rio Tinto immediately comes up as the cheapest company with a PE ratio of 14.7, followed by Southern Copper with 24.3 and BHP with 27.2. Finally, we have Freeport with 33. I think that the main reason behind Rio Tinto's cheap evaluation is that it also has sizable aluminium and iron operations. Plus, it has only been growing its revenue by between 4 and 5% a year. But that is likely to change once some of its new projects start production later in 2021 and 2022. Copper is very popular right now, so it seems that investors are pricing it highly. Hence, Southern Copper and Freeport have higher valuations. Looking at the forward PE, we can see that Rio is again the cheapest, with a forward PE of 6.4, which is extremely cheap for the industry and historically low for Rio itself. Freeport and BHP follow with the forward PE ratios of 14.3 for Freeport and 15.4 for BHP. And finally, we have Southern Copper with a forward PE of 16, which is not that bad as the company usually trades at 20 PE or higher. Also, if we look at the 5-year discounted cash flow models for these companies on Finbox, we see that Rio Tinto has a potential upside of 56%, Southern Copper has an upside of 34.5%, Freeport has an upside of 48%, and BHP has an upside of 38%. So, essentially, all of the 4 companies seem to be priced relatively cheap for what they are, although Rio seems to be even more discounted than the rest. Now, let's look at health. In terms of debt to equity, Rio is again the lowest with only 24%, followed by BHP with 37%, Freeport with 50%, and finally Southern Copper with 86%, which is actually quite high. Despite the higher debt levels in Freeport and Southern Copper, all 4 companies actually have enough cash to cover their current liabilities, meaning that there is no real short-term risk there, which is good to see. However, the low debt levels of Rio Tinto make it very attractive in my opinion. Finally, let's look at the dividends. Miners return money to shareholders through dividends, so this is a very important indicator. Can you guess which one has the best dividend? Yeah, it's Rio Tinto again. They have a dividend yield of 5.3%, although the implied forward dividend yield is above 7%. BHP and Southern Copper follow with a 4.2% dividend, and finally we have Freeport with a 0.7% dividend. If you are after an income portfolio, Rio Tinto seems perfect. Can they afford to pay their dividends though? The answer? Yes. Their payout ratio is 64%, which means that they are earning more than enough to cover dividend payments. Southern Copper has a similar payout ratio of 62%, whereas BHP is perhaps paying an unsustainable dividend with an almost 90% payout ratio. Freeport has a payout ratio of just 6%, but that is simply because they are paying a tiny dividend. In case you forgot what the payout ratio is, it is basically the amount of dividends that the company pays divided by its net earnings. Alright, so this is just my opinion, but the way I look at it, Rio is the cheapest and most undervalued stock, which also pays the biggest dividend, so it's the obvious pick. Southern Copper and Freeport are a great choice if you want to bet on copper. BHP is okay as a backup choice to spread the risk. Finally, if you're not convinced about any of these, but still want to get exposure to copper miners, you can just get the Global X Copper Miners ETF. Or if you want to avoid miners altogether and just get the metal, you can get the United States Copper Index Fund. Alright, I hope that was helpful. Copper has amazing potential over the next few years, so it's a good idea to keep an eye on the price. Apart from that, check some of my other stock picks here. Please like, share and subscribe to help grow the channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you again in the next video.